We are already halfway done with Survivor 47, and as these numbers dwindle, it's actually getting a little bit harder to decipher who wins. I don't know about y'all, but this season has been pretty hard to snuff out for me. I mean, the gameplay's still pretty fun, but now that they're adding all these little twists and advantages in, it's starting to muddy up the waters just a little bit, you know? There is going to be a lot for us to recap today, but before we begin, please make sure you hit that subscribe button below if you have not already. Not only do I talk about Survivor, but I also cover other reality shows on my channel from time to time too. Plus, I also plan on exploring film and different types of content here in the near future, so please make sure you're subscribed so that you can stay tuned. Now, let's get started. So this episode kicks off with everyone returning back to camp after Rome left. Now, most people were pretty happy with Rome leaving, so it kind of feels like a reset in the game, you know? Unlike most times when they come back after Tribal Council, this time nobody is like really super pissed off. Nobody's feeling upset or bitter or anything. It actually kind of feels like a new reset in the game. And of course, the first person we hear from is Teeny, talking about how relieved she is that Rome is finally gone. It feels like this entire season we have been getting Teeny's point of view after damn near every decision in the game, even when they weren't involved. Teeny has been the main character and the main narrator all season long, and it's things like that that make her a really, really, really good winner guess. But at the same time, like I've said all season, it's also been a little bit too in your face, right? Maybe a little bit too obvious, so we're just gonna have to see. Meanwhile, we see Saul out there trying to repair his relationship with Andy after voting him out last week. And this is kind of starting off as a little bit of a baby disaster at first, but eventually Saul is able to flip the conversation around and let Andy know that this whole plot to use Andy as the backup plan was actually Sam's idea the whole time. And this is where we get that glorious montage of Andy having that personal emotional crisis because he was betrayed, which normally, of course, in real life would not be funny at all, but the way the producers edited this whole scene got a real good chuckle out of me, I'm not gonna lie.
Whatever you need, Sierra. Do you want my shot in the dark? I can give you my shot in the dark.
I mean, I would love that.
I'm so thankful for you.
Yeah, man. I got you. You know I got you.
Yeah, right.
It was Sam. Sam is the one who said that you're the backup.
Now Andy is on a path of revenge and he wants to go after his old Gada tribe at any cost, especially Sam. Now, of course, we don't necessarily see anything being played out in this episode, but I think they're setting us up for something really juicy to happen next week. We see that Andy is already out there busy gathering the numbers to work against Sam, but it's just up in the air on whether it's actually going to fall through or not. This Andy thing could easily be how Sam meets his demise in the game. I mean, he's been set up to be a front runner for a while now, but if you ask me, over the past couple of episodes, his trajectory has just been falling a little bit. So overall, I don't know, it's kind of hard to predict. On one hand, I've always been able to see Sam make it very, very far in this game, but on the other hand, now that Andy's starting to talk, I do see a clear path for Sam to also go home, especially since everybody else is looking at him as a threat already. So we'll just have to see. We also hear some rumblings about an all-girls alliance forming, which we hear all the time on shows like this. On these types of social strategy reality shows, it seems like at some point the ladies always want to group up and work together. But I would say a good 9 times out of 10, it just never ends up working out the way they originally intend to. And I think Teeny spells it out pretty well here.
In the Survivor lexicon, I feel like the all-girls alliance is almost like mythologized at this point. It's been done before. We've seen the Black Widow Brigade pull off some of the best moves in this show. Since then, it gets snubbed before it even gets a chance to kick off and start.
Now, I totally believe that, yes, of course, women can come together and work together in these types of games to accomplish a common goal. But I also know that it takes more than just simply being a lady for these things to work. And that's where a lot of people get messed up. Like, you also have to have good game compatibility and a common in-game goal. Basically, ladies, make it make sense for you to work with a specific woman or a couple specific people, not just anybody and everybody. But it really feels like this season that they're kind of setting us up for us to have a woman winner, or at least for the women to do really well together. So hey, we're just gonna have to see if this all girls thing really ends up turning out. Next, we are on to the immunity challenge, where this one will be played in teams. They did the thing where they separate the two groups until tribal council. So really, it's kind of like we have a 2-tribe format without it being super permanent. They've done this a few times this season, and honestly, I do kind of like it. I like the way it still randomizes the game without us having to permanently and completely adapt to like a 2-tribe format, you know? Anyways, the blue tribe ends up eventually losing this one. And this group consists of literally everyone in the old Tuku tribe except for Rachel. So right off the bat, going into tribal, it is just not looking good for Rachel's game at all. She is by far the odd one out. So obviously Rachel is the clear and easy choice here, but things do start to get a little bit messy when Tiyana decides that she might actually want to target Gabe this week instead. Tiyana knows that right now their Tuku tribe is in a situation where they have the majority, right? There is 5 of them and 3 and 4 of everybody else. So their group really is the biggest threat in the game. And so maybe it would be a good idea to just choose which one of their own to get out now instead of letting somebody else do it for them. Now, this obviously is a huge risk, but I do completely understand this coming from Tiyana specifically. Her and Gabe have just not gotten along at all. They've been coming for each other's throats for a while now, so she doesn't really have any use for him in the game, even if they did start off on the same tribe. But in order for Tiyana to truly have the numbers to make this vote work, she would have to get Caroline on board. And when she approaches Caroline with this, we see that Caroline just strikes this down immediately. So right off the bat, it's kind of looking like this plan is just dead in the water. Meanwhile, we see that Gabe has been out there being a little sneaky in his own right. We see him attempt to play Rachel a little bit, but she is able to suss out the bullshit immediately and shuts that down. So overall, things are looking a little fluid, but it still feels like Rachel would be the likely vote here as the group heads into tribal council. That is, except for the fact that Saul has a little trick up his sleeve too. Earlier at the reward, we saw that Saul was able to find an advantage that was hidden in the decor. Nicely done. I feel like it's been such a long time since we've seen them hide something at a reward, right? Like they used to do fun stuff like that all the time. Saul's advantage gives him the opportunity to help out somebody that is going to tribal tonight. The only question is, who will it be? It was kind of hard to predict where Saul was going to take this, especially since we don't really see a lot of content on who his friends are or where he stands nowadays. But as we see, Saul eventually decides to help out Rachel and give her the advantage. I do wonder if this was more to help Rachel out or just to put a nail in the coffin for the old Tuku tribe, but hopefully we get more information about that in the next episode. Now, this advantage is obviously great news for Rachel. It's pretty much a get out of jail free card, but I did see a lot of you on the internet debating that maybe this advantage was a little too powerful, and I totally understand that too. Immunity is like the biggest deal in the game, and it's usually something you have to work very, very hard for. So for the producers to just be giving out immunity willy-nilly like they did in this episode just seems like it's a little much. Like in total, immunity was promised to 8 out of 12 people that were remaining in this episode. 8 out of 12 people could not go home no matter what. That is absolutely insane. And it's a good thing that there were no idols or other advantages used, because then we could have easily found ourselves in another advantage getting situation. And who wants that? Now that Rachel is officially safe, the old Tuku tribe has no choice but to turn on each other here. And honestly, it didn't look like they were planning to go this route at all, because as soon as they figure out what's going on, it's just confusion, worry, and and chaos hitting everybody. So my guess was that they were just going to make the easy choice and vote out Rachel originally, but now we have a live tribal on our hands as everyone scrambles to save their game. Caroline is now officially in the middle here, and we've heard her talk multiple times about how Sue is her number one, and at the same time, we've heard Sue talk multiple times about how Gabe is her number one. So in the end, as we see, everybody just ends up hopping over to Gabe's side, and Tiyana is the one who is ultimately voted out. Again, this vote wasn't a big surprise, especially since it all came down to Caroline. They've kind of been setting up this rivalry between Tiyana and Gabe for a while now, and since Gabe has just gotten a more consistent and more prominent edit, I always figured that he would be the one to come out on top. I think the real fun is now going to begin next episode with this Sam versus Andy beef. It looks like Andy is out there gathering his troops. Meanwhile, Sam is none the wiser. And I have no idea how that's going to play out, but I'm really, really excited to see. Sierra is another person who I really saw winning, but now it looks like Andy may be coming after her a little bit too. But at the same time, she doesn't seem to be in nearly as much danger as Sam is, so honestly, I don't know. I don't have any real reason to not think that Sierra is winning this thing now, other than the fact that her edit has been a little bit quiet recently. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that maybe she's not important right now to the story. Her edit definitely isn't as in your face as Teeny's, who, like I said before, is getting just a classic dominant winner's edit. Like I said before, Teeny is definitely a main character and our main narrator of the season, but she just feels a little bit too obvious, so I'm hesitant to make that call. And I know that people like Genevieve and Caroline are starting to pop out a lot more now, but it is also still hard for me to picture them as winners just because they were put on the back burner so much during the first few episodes. But trust me, I still hear y'all and I'm paying attention, okay? The Caroline stans and the Genevieve truthers, I hear y'all. Y'all are not going to be ignored, okay? I'm still going to go ahead and make the call that Sierra wins just because I do think a lady is going to win, and just because her edit has been a little bit more consistent throughout the entire season, but I'll admit I'm very lost on this one still. Now that we are past the halfway point, of course I want to know, who do you see winning this season? Let me know in the comments below. I still really can't see it being anybody but Sierra or Teeny at this point. If I had to choose a third person, I would maybe put Caroline in there, but who knows for real. I'm just over here doing my best, okay? So that's all I got for today. This episode was a little bit more predictable compared to some of the ones we've had in the past, but I do still think that the fun is still yet to come, especially with this Andy versus Sam beef. How fun is that? Of course, I'll be back here to recap the next episode with you all, but until then, bye.